Welcome to the Offsite Construction Series. I'm your host, Audrey Grabesic, and this is Offsite Dirt. One of the most important parts of any construction project is the inspections. We're speaking with John Duemling, and John is with T.R. Arnold Associates. This is a third-party inspection company that does engineering, plan review, and inspections. Welcome, John. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. Thank you for being here. It's a rare opportunity that we get you away from your job of inspecting projects, but tell us a little bit more about your company and what you offer.
Yeah, so like you mentioned earlier, T.R. Arnold is a third party for modular construction companies. So what that means is that we offer to our clients plan review services, inspection services, as well as other consulting services related to modular construction, RVs, and general engineering services.
Why are third-party inspections so important to the construction industry and the construction project in general?
Yeah, so as you kind of alluded to earlier, there's always going to be an inspection process with construction. So typically with a site-built building, that's all going to run through a municipal building department. You're going to achieve a certain portion of the construction, and then you're going to have an inspector come out and look at it. And then they're going to say, okay, go ahead and proceed, and they're going to do the next segment. So for modular construction, this is an issue for two reasons. The first off is the municipal building department doesn't really have the ability to travel all over the country to get into the different manufacturers' facilities to look at everything. And the other issue is the traditional achieve this and then we'll come look at it doesn't keep pace with a lot of higher speed that we see in factory-built construction. So where the third party comes in is that we have authority from jurisdictions and states all across the country where we can come in and perform those inspection services, which guarantees that the buildings have been looked at, they're safe, everything that needs to get taken care of so that your manufacturers can ship to the site is taken care of.
So what do you look for and how do you evaluate those inspections?
So the first thing is before we're even really inspecting any specific building, is we are evaluating a manufacturer's quality assurance. So every manufacturer should have a quality program. That's what they are doing internally to guarantee that they're producing a safe and quality product. It's internal code checks. They have people who understand construction code internally for constantly evaluating what they're doing. It's the training of the staff who are performing the work to make sure that they are doing things properly. It is testing procedures for electrical testing, for plumbing testing, to make sure that everything is getting done properly and you're not going to have any issues once you get it to the field. That is the first part of it. The second part is obviously the construction code. Every building, with a few exceptions, that's built in this country has to be built to some construction code. And we go through and we develop a process based on what the manufacturer is doing, rate of production, and the style of construction they're using to ensure that we can look at relevant aspects of construction so that we can evaluate it, make sure that the client is meeting all the requirements of the code and is doing everything that they say they should, their quality.
So how does that work for plan review? So say we have a new client that comes to you and they're at the beginning of their project, I'm guessing. They would submit to you so that you can review those plans and then you have your comments that go back. How does that process work?
Yes, so I am specifically an inspector, so I don't get very involved in the plan review side. But essentially, the way it would work if you were a new client is you would start by just having a conversation with one of our account managers. And basically, you'd say, hey, this is who we are. This is what we're looking to build. This is where we want to send it. And they probably ask to start with some basic drawings just to get a better idea of what you're trying to do. And then from there, we would start certification process with the different state agencies and ourselves. And from there, we would go into the detailed plan review, where we're going to be looking at structural, we're going to be looking at all the means of egress, all the general safety concerns in the code, and all the specific requirements depending on what you're trying to do.
Well, that would save a tremendous amount of time and effort. So it's great to see that those services are there. You know, John, getting back to really your area of expertise, how do you develop a good relationship with your inspector?
Yeah, so obviously having a great relationship is a really big deal with your inspector. And one of the first things that needs to happen is your inspector actually needs to learn about you as a client, as a manufacturer, how you want to work, how your line works, what your internal processes are for quality. When there's an issue, how do you want to resolve it? These are all really basic things, but over the few years I've been inspecting, I've found that when you have those understandings, makes it a lot easier to have a mutual conversation about any issues that are going to come up, as opposed to it being more argumentative or confrontational. That's the first big part. And then the second part that is more on the manufacturer's side of what they should do, or what I'd recommend they do with their inspector, is that they don't just involve their inspector when they need to get a line or unit inspected. What I mean by that is that it's very upfront. You know, they need to talk to us about when are they going to need an inspection in the future if it's not on a standing schedule. They should be telling us about what they like and what they don't like about the ways we're offering services. I really work hard to make sure that I am meeting my customers' needs and offering excellent service. Additionally, when a manufacturer has a question or wants to try something different, I would really recommend that they reach out and they talk to their inspector and their plan review about what they want to do, so that everyone's on the same page, as opposed to just submitting a plan or something that your inspector sees on the floor that's different, that might lead us down kind of a rabbit hole of issues that weren't predicted. Because the thing that I never want to do is go into a facility and have to stop a project line. That's something I never wanted.
So John, do you do several different types of inspections? Do you do the in-factory inspection and then do the on-site inspection, or are there two different people that handle it? Is it the same inspector?
Yeah, so typically your third-party inspector is only going to be doing the in-facility or in-plant inspection. And all the site work performed associated with the modular building is going to be done with the municipal building inspectors, or could get permission from the local building department to have a third party or someone else perform inspections, assuming they're qualified and it gets.
I love that, we were always talking in offsite construction, it's about building your pre-construction team and really knowing where those conversations lead you, from the civil to, your geological engineers, to your structurals, to then the design in the factory. So I think it's so important, and you've brought up such a great point, that it's really about the planning. If you're going to try some new strategy or you're going to try some new design, it's so imperative that they already have these conversations with you. Are you seeing that factories are getting a little bit better at achieving that success story with conversation, with bringing you in the beginning?
I mean, absolutely. And it even goes farther than that in terms of planning in general. I see, in order to best take advantage of modular construction and what it can offer, a lot more planning needs to be done up front. And I think a big part of that is making sure everyone involved is on the same page. I've seen projects where people aren't really upfront or clear about what they're trying to do. And because we as a third party didn't understand what our client wanted to do, that it's caused issues and delays.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think obviously the biggest point is, one, communication, and then knowing what the parameters are of what you're trying to build and the safety around it, and then obviously building to code. Is there something in there that I'm not seeing?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to quality control and quality assurance again, just in that it's absolutely critical for a manufacturer who wants to do really well in producing modular buildings that they have a really solid program, because what this allows them to do is, instead of being a build it, find a problem, fix it, it's that they're preventing the problem from happening in the first place, or they're catching it in the facility where it's really easy to fix and repair and come up with a good option to move forward, as opposed to having an issue that happens or gets caught later, like worst case will be in the field, where now you're going to have a crew come in, you're going to have to hire a local contractor, deal with it, and they may not be familiar with your methods of construction and how you work on it. So by having a really solid program, you protect yourself as a manufacturer, but I also think it's important that as an industry that we protect ourselves from a negative image that's sometimes associated with modular construction.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And it's interesting, John, you and I met actually a couple of times, and we met at the Offsite Construction Expo in Denver, Colorado. And it was really nice to see you having conversations. I think more and more people are being aware that a lot of things can be resolved with having these conversations and hiring a team of your experts to come in and start figuring out if there's going to be issues or things to be aware of at the beginning of this. In your experience over the last few years, are you seeing more and more factories being designed and built out there?
Yes, I'm seeing more factories open, but I think one of the fastest growing segments is these smaller companies, either people who are traditional contractor, people getting into like shipping container homes and small homes and things more of that nature. And kind of what comes on this is people who they might have, case of a traditional contractor starting to do modular construction, is they have some understanding of the code, how they relate to site construction, but it's not always clear to them how to expand that to a state level program, third party. And then some of these people, like smaller homes and the container homes and ship container buildings, it's definitely a educational process. Let everyone get up to speed, because there is a lot of code material out there, and manufacturers, you are responsible for all the codes that are adopted in jurisdiction having authority.
So being a third party inspector, do you have to constantly have classes? How do you guys keep on the top of how the industry is changing and what you're looking for?
Yes, so first off, I'm constantly looking at what I'm seeing as an inspector in the plants in different buildings, and constantly asking myself, how does this new thing I see fit into the structure of code that we have? And then as new products, new techniques, new technology becomes available, things change, so we have to constantly evaluate how does that relate to the codes. The codes are there to provide a minimum level of performance in our building. So they don't lock anyone into a specific form of you must do this, but instead it's you must meet this performance. So I have to evaluate how does this affect that performance, what proves that it meets the requirements of the code. Furthermore, there's constantly internal and industry-wide issues that come up. We talk with other inspectors, plan reviewers, code professionals internally with ourselves so that we can try to stay up on the trends that are out there. Additionally, in order to maintain our licensing as an inspector, we need to complete classes, study sessions, exams, which prove that we're staying up to date on changes and the requirements as they change based on code cycle up.
So does TR Arnold only work in certain states? Are you guys national? Where do you service? Is it everywhere?
I mean, yes. So our office is in Elkhart, Indiana, but I am in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We have inspectors all over the country, and not only do we work just all over the country, but we do international projects as well. I've been to Canada several times for inspection, units coming into the United States. I have colleagues that have been to China, and Poland fairly recently to do inspections for projects that are coming into the United States.
That's exciting. So you get to do some pretty extensive and pretty amazing travel.
Yeah, I have been traveling quite a bit over the last year. I generally in the western part of the United States when I'm traveling, up in North Dakota, Kansas, Nebraska quite frequently. I've been in Texas, Indiana, Illinois, and again, last year inspections.
So on the projects that you have seen, is there an area that is becoming that's growing? Are you seeing more growth? I know you were saying, you know, there's factories that are coming up that are smaller or tiny home factories, or, you know, different smaller product. Are you seeing a big surge in like the multifamily or the hospitality? Are you seeing any industry growth in these areas?
So the biggest industry area that I've seen with the clients that I'm regularly inspecting for has been solar power and power distribution.
Wow. I wouldn't have guessed that. That's incredible. So it sounds like we are not only doing offsite in those areas, but we also have transportation and air and wind. That sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's one of those things that as we move towards more and more renewable energy, that we just need new infrastructure that doesn't exist. And in a lot of cases, modular construction is a great way to address that.
I love it. I love that you've expanded into that space. Are there any other things or any other areas that you can see third party expanding in? Obviously, I love that you're in renewable energies and you're in offsite construction. Is there any other area or are there any other industry that you're starting to see more involvement?
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned it earlier. I am seeing more and more of the tiny or affordable housing. I was looking at a prototype for that this morning. Additionally, I'm seeing a lot of buildings that are cryptocurrency mining farms.
Wow, that's fascinating. Who would have thought? Do you have anything else that you'd like to add about what we should be aware of with, you know, your company or third-party inspections?
Well, first, I'd like to say for everyone in offsite modular construction, just to keep up on trends and your own education of what's going on. It's the best way to stay on the leading edge of the industry. And then if you're looking for or need third-party services, there's more than a few companies out there. But just make sure that whoever you choose to work with has experienced professionals who are able to meet all of your needs, as in they can inspect and do reviews for all of the jurisdictions or states that you want to ship to, and that the individuals that you're working with are able to understand what you want to do and work with you instead of put you into a box and try to tell you how to do it.
That's well said, John. I couldn't have said it any better. And it makes me happy to hear that you not only are expanding in that space, but you also understand it as well as you do. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's the dirt. Now you have a little bit more insight on inspections, especially in third-party inspections in all these different facets of the build, the safety, the modular construction, and renewable energy. Who would have thought? Thank you for being here on Offsite Dirt, and thank you for listening to our Offsite Construction series.